It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. A beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood. A neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you and you and you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Please, won't you please? Please, would you be my neighbor? Good morning. Shermain Melton here, and I'm a stand for living out loud. And when I say living out loud, it's about taking a stand for what matters to you. And I'm also a coach. Mr. Rogers was my nice little intro. When I think about Mr. Rogers, I did some research, and what he said was he went into television because he hated it. He hated it. And so, in essence, he wanted to make a positive impact for children and for their families. His mission to positively impact the lives of children and their families through television. This guy created, as you know, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and it had over 895 episodes. It's amazing for me to think about. He created this legacy and he impacted millions of lives, including me. Well, including mine, I should say, rather. And so, my first question today for you is, who's inspired you? And what are you doing with that gift? Who's inspired you and what are you doing with that gift? Mr. Rogers, he wasn't afraid to approach those difficult topics. He wasn't afraid to speak about the things that people didn't speak of. So what difficult conversations do you need to have? What are the difficult topics that you need to bring up and bring into the light and bring out? Here's mine. You see, I grew up in the church, and we went to church pretty much every single Sunday. And I felt that if my parents or church people knew that I was gay, that I would be a disgrace, that I would be abandoned, and that I'd be alone. And that was my biggest fear, being alone in the name of love. Being alone and being pushed aside and someone calling that love. Crazy to me. I have lots of stories that play in my mind about being alone and this fear around being alone. And one story that I hold that I'm working on letting go of is, if I speak about the things that matter to me, the things that I care about, that I'll be alone, that people will turn their backs. But the reality, of course, is the opposite will happen. If I speak about the things I care about and the things that are important to me, the things that resonate with me, the things that my heart are longing for, people want to see me win and they will come towards me. Yeah, some people will turn around. I want to take a quick little side note for you leaders. If you're a people leader, pay attention. Your direct reports, they may not be at their full potential because of the story they're telling themselves. It's your job as a leader to figure out what that story is, because that story is holding them back from their full potential. What's their story? Spend time with them to go deep and understand what they're telling themselves that's holding them back. And it's your job to help them work through it, fortunately or unfortunately. You see, for me coming up, all I wanted was to be seen and loved for who I was. And if you're a leader, your people want the same thing. Now, in the corporate world, we don't like to use words like love. So we use words like cared for. Your people want to be seen and maybe not cared for, but cared about. They want to see that you actually care about them and their well-being, that you care enough to go deep within them to understand them. I was thinking about today's discussion, and if I'm going to encourage you to speak about something that's difficult, then I need to do the same for myself. And so as I think about my difficult topic, at least one of them, it is this. It's a message to church leaders and for church people, my church peeps. And in my experience, churches do a great job at modeling love for God and love of others. Where they miss the mark, where they what they don't model is loving self. And this connects to being selfish. And the word selfish has such a negative connotation. And so Dr. King in 1958 did a talk. He spoke at Purdue University, and he spoke about living a complete life. He said to do that, you've got to have balance of loving God, loving others, and loving yourself. And so the focus in my experience for my church peeps is self-love, being selfish, being okay going after your personal pursuits and ambitions, and modeling that in the church. You got to model it. You can't just talk about it. And so in my experience, churches make people feel guilty about self-love, about self-care, about going after their personal ambitions. Now, not all of them, of course, but some do that. And so it's about balance. It's about balance, bringing in more balance. And so if you're a church person or a church leader, if you want your church to grow, bring in more balance. Model and talk about self-love. Make it okay for people to love themselves and to take time away and to go after personal ambitions and personal pursuits. Hell, bring those into the church. And so my question to you is, what's the difficult conversation that you want to have, that you've been putting off, that you've created excuses around and for? I'm Shermain Melton, and I'm a stand for living out loud. And it's about taking a stand for what matters to you. And I'm also a coach. And so if you found this message valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you, number one, subscribed. Number two, shared this with anyone that you love and trust that you think would get value from this. So I appreciate your time. Make it a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.